Somewhere on the California coast right now, there's a guy pulling into a marina after a good weekend on the water. Lines coiled, fenders out, that quiet satisfaction you only get after a solid sail. He walks up to the office to ask about a slip. He's got insurance. He can pay. He's not a problem. And instead of a conversation, he gets a polite, uncomfortable no. No explanation posted on the wall. Nothing in writing. Just a vague, apologetic, "We're not really accepting vessels like that right now." He walks back to his boat, confused, maybe a little embarrassed, wondering what exactly just happened. Here's the thing. There's no law anywhere in this country that says your boat has to be under a certain age to dock somewhere. Nothing official, nothing on the books. But talk to enough boaters and the same story keeps surfacing. The same quiet rejection, the same vague language. And the question worth asking is, what is actually going on here? Because it's happening more than most people realize. Spend an hour on any major sailing forum, any liveaboard community thread, any boating Facebook group, and you'll find them. Post after post, different boats, different states, different marinas, same story. Someone shows up with a 1979 ketch or a 1983 sloop, well-maintained, fully insured, and gets turned away. Sometimes they're given a number. 30 years. 25 years. Sometimes there's no number at all, just that same uncomfortable energy coming from across the desk. And here's the part that matters. There is no law behind any of this. Not in California, not in Florida, not in Washington, no federal regulation, no state statute, nothing that legally requires your vessel to have been built after a certain year to qualify for a marina slip. It doesn't exist. But that doesn't mean the rule doesn't exist. It just means it's informal, unwritten, enforced differently from marina to marina, with no appeals process and no obligation to explain. You either fit or you don't, and they don't owe you a reason. Now, before this turns into a full pitchfork situation, it's worth being honest about something. Marinas are private businesses. They set their own rules all the time. There's no law in California that requires boat insurance either, but try walking into a marina without it. That conversation ends fast. So the idea that a marina can quietly filter boats based on age isn't actually that radical. They've always had the power to do this. Which means the more interesting question isn't whether they're allowed to. They are. The more interesting question is why this is suddenly happening everywhere at once. And the answer to that starts with something that has nothing to do with your boat's paperwork at all. It starts with risk. Because from a marina's perspective, an older boat isn't just an older boat. It's a probability. And the probability isn't always a comfortable one. Older vessels statistically carry more problems. Aging electrical systems that were wired decades before modern safety standards existed. Fuel lines that have been softening and cracking for 30 years. Maintenance that gets deferred once, then twice, then indefinitely. These aren't hypotheticals. They're the kinds of issues that show up quietly, below the waterline or behind the paneling, until one day they don't show up quietly anymore. And when something goes wrong in a marina, it doesn't stay contained to one boat. An electrical fire spreads to the slip next door. A slow sink contaminates the water, damages the dock, and triggers an environmental response that costs more than the boat was ever worth. A fuel leak doesn't ask which vessels nearby are new enough to deserve protection. One bad boat in the wrong moment can turn a busy marina into a very expensive problem that nobody signed up for. So instead of inspecting every single vessel that comes through the gate, which would take time and money and expertise most marina offices simply don't have, they use age as a filter. It's blunt. It's imprecise. It will turn away a perfectly maintained 1981 cutter that's in better shape than half the newer boats on the dock. But it's efficient. And from a pure risk management standpoint, the logic isn't completely unreasonable. Here's the honest part, though. Risk management alone doesn't fully explain what's happening. A marina genuinely only worried about safety would invest in proper surveys and inspections. Some do, most don't. Because the truth is, there's a second reason driving all of this, and it has very little to do with whether your bilge pump works. Because the second reason is money, and not just marina money, waterfront money, which is a different thing entirely. Waterfront real estate might be the single most valuable category of land in this country right now. And a marina slip, when you start looking at it through that lens, isn't a parking spot for your boat anymore. It's a revenue slot in a premium location. And premium locations have started asking premium questions about who gets to occupy them. Think about the comparison for a second. On one side, you've got a 1984 sailboat. Owner maintains everything himself, buys parts carefully, nurses every dollar. On the other side, a 2022 center console with a full electronics package, twin outboards, and an owner who doesn't think twice about a 4-figure monthly bill. Same slip, same dock, very different revenue profiles. And marina ownership has done that math. You'll hear names thrown around when this conversation comes up. Institutional investors, private equity, large ownership groups quietly buying up marinas across multiple states and repositioning them up market. Whether it's one specific company or a broader trend, the effect is identical. More capital flowing in, higher expectations flowing out, and a much lower tolerance for anything that doesn't fit the new model. Look at what happened with the Bahamas cruising fees. They didn't raise prices because costs went up. They raised prices to thin the crowd. Fewer boats, higher revenue per boat, less operational headache. The math works cleanly for them, even if it quietly shuts the door on people who've been coming for years. And that's where boating starts to fracture into two completely different worlds. One world is polished, resort vibes, clean docks, boats that look like they belong in a brochure. The other world is rougher. Tools on the dock, lines coiled imperfectly, people actually working on their boats instead of photographing them. Those two worlds used to overlap. They really don't anymore. And the guy standing at that marina office isn't just being told his boat is too old. He's being told he's the wrong kind of boater entirely. So what do you actually do with that information? Some people decide to play the game. They invest in a fresh survey, new standing rigging, a paint job that makes a 1986 hull look like it just left the factory. They clean up the teak, replace the dodger, make everything look tight and intentional. And honestly, that can work. A well-presented older boat with a clean survey and a tidy deck can absolutely change the conversation at the marina office. Some managers care more about condition than calendar year, and giving them something presentable to point to makes their decision easier. But let's be clear about what that is. That's not fixing the problem. That's dressing for an interview at a company that was never really going to hire you. You're adapting to a system that's moved against you, not changing the system itself. Other people have stopped trying to fit in entirely. They've gone looking for the places that haven't been repositioned yet. Smaller towns, quieter waterfronts, marinas that haven't been bought and rebranded and optimized for maximum revenue per slip. Places where the person behind the desk isn't evaluating your boat like a financial instrument. They're asking if you can handle it, if you're going to pay on time, and if you're going to be a problem or not. That's a completely different conversation. In those marinas, a 1978 Ketch and a 2019 center console share the same dock without anyone making it weird. Nobody's pretending the older boat is something it isn't, and nobody expects them to. Function matters more than optics. The dock boards might creak, the amenities might be basic, but here's the trade. In those places, you're actually wanted, not tolerated, not evaluated, wanted. And that changes the entire feeling of having a boat in the first place. And here's the uncomfortable part. This isn't slowing down. If anything, it's accelerating. The pressure on waterfront property isn't going away. Capital doesn't reverse course once it finds a return. More marinas will get bought, rebranded, upgraded, and repositioned. More boat owners are going to have that same quiet conversation at the office window. More people are going to walk back to their boat confused, wondering what rule they broke that nobody ever wrote down. And right now, there's very little protecting them. Marinas are private businesses with broad discretion over who they accept. No federal regulation covers this. No state law steps in. There's no appeals process, no oversight body, no requirement to explain the decision. If they don't want your boat, they don't want it. And the legal framework currently gives you almost nowhere to go. What's worth recognizing is that this isn't a marina problem in isolation. It's the same pattern playing out across every working waterfront in the country. The same forces that pushed commercial fishermen out of harbor towns, that turned working piers into restaurant rows, that converted affordable slips into yacht club waiting lists. The marina shift is just the latest chapter in a much longer story about who gets to use the water and who gets priced out of it. Some pushback exists. Small marina owners who haven't sold yet and don't plan to. Liveaboard communities fighting displacement in cities like Seattle and San Francisco. Individual boaters voting with their anchor and simply refusing to pay for places that don't want them. But the trend line is clear. The window of affordable, welcoming, no questions asked boating is getting narrower. And the boaters who feel that most aren't the ones with the newest boats. They never are. So we come back to that guy at the marina office. Salt still on his deck, lines still creaking, wondering what just happened. He has a choice. He can spend his energy trying to fit into a system that's quietly decided he doesn't belong. Or he can find the places that still make sense for how he actually wants to boat. Because your boat doesn't have an expiration date. Some marinas have decided it does. And pretending otherwise won't change that math. So here's the question. If you pulled into your marina today as a brand new customer, would your boat make the cut? Drop your answer in the comments.